With the full release of Warhammer 40,000 Darktide, there are going to be a lot of players of that game who love the vibe and the world of Warhammer who are interested in the tabletop. So in this video, I want to tell you how to get that Darktide experience on the tabletop for roughly the same price as the video game. So let's start with a very brief description. In Darktide, you are playing as someone who was captured by the Imperium and you're accused of being a heretic even though you aren't. Because of this, you're conscripted by the Imperial Inquisition to fight for them against chaos. So the concept here is either you prove yourself innocent or you die trying. And this is a class-based game, so there are 4 classes. The Zealot, who's an up-close melee or short-range fighter. You have a Psyker, you have a Sharpshooter, and you have the class I'm playing, which is Ogryn. So you're fighting against chaos, which is all Nurgle infected, and you're fighting in a hive city, which is just an enormous, giant city that's very industrial. You do all these missions as a group of 4, and it's a co-op game, so it's always going to be 4 players against the AI-controlled chaos. So now that we know the video game side of it, let's talk about the tabletop. So in my opinion, Warhammer is broken down into 4 quadrants. You have sci-fi, fantasy, big army, and skirmish. There are others, but those are the big, main, most popular games. Obviously, Darktide is set in the Warhammer 40,000 universe, which means it's sci-fi, so we're not going to be talking about fantasy. So that means it's not Age of Sigmar and it's not Warcry. So now that leaves us the choice, is it an army game or a skirmish game? Oddly, Darktide has a little bit of both. You do fight big giant hordes of enemies, which would be more like the actual Warhammer 40,000 experience. And you even have some of the specialists and you have some of those big monsters like the Beast of Nurgle. But Darktide doesn't have artillery, it doesn't have tanks, it doesn't have aircraft. It doesn't have the bigger monsters, like anything bigger than the Beast of Nurgle or a Plague Ogryn. And you on the player side only fights as a 4-player team. And outside of anything except maybe Imperial Knights, you're never going to have a 4-man army in something like Warhammer 40,000. So that makes me think it's going to be more of a skirmish game, where you're micromanaging a small elite force. And another thing that leans more towards the skirmish game is you're doing little 20 to 25 minute bouts. You're not doing these big multiple hour missions, or these big campaigns. So the timing lines up more with a skirmish game as well. Granted, most Games Workshop games take more than 20 minutes even for skirmish, but it's not as long as a full 40k match. So from the Games Workshop games, if we say sci-fi skirmish, that leaves us with 2 options. Kill Team and Necromunda. So I honestly don't play Necromunda, but it is set in a hive city, and it has that really grungy feel. It's about gangs fighting over a hive city. So if you like the setting of Darktide, Necromunda probably is a really good choice. You just won't have the exact same model options. But it is worth looking into. So that means for this video, we're going to be talking about Kill Team. If you're a fan of the channel, that shouldn't be a surprise. We mostly talk about Kill Team here, but I honestly do think it's the best fit for Darktide. So Kill Team will be 2 players pitted against each other, with teams of roughly 5 to 12 models. So you won't have those giant endless hordes like you do in Darktide. And it is player versus player, not a bunch of players cooperatively playing against the computer. So it is a little different, but it's roughly the same team size, and you did a lot of the same model choices. So I think you really will be able to get that experience. And if you go somewhere like a game store that has a board you can use in the train and everything, the teams are about $50 to $60, which is comparable. I know there's the point that you need 2 teams, so you and your opponent both have to buy one. But to play Darktide with a friend, you and your friend both have to buy the game. So I think in the end, it does end up being comparable. So if you are basically wanting to replicate Darktide in Kill Team, I think for Chaos, there's a very obvious choice, and that's going to be the Blooded Kill Team. So this is a Chaos Warband who has your standard Trader Guardsmen, which you see a lot of them in the video game, but you also did a lot of the same specialists. You have your Butcher, which will largely act like the Rager, and you have a Gunner option that can be a Flamer, which we have in the game, or it can have something like a Meltodon. I know we don't technically have Meltodons in Darktide, but we do have a few different Gunner options, and I think those can be replicated here. For the Blooded, they also have a sharpshooter, which can replicate the sniper, which I hate that sniper in the game. That thing hits like a truck. You also have your Grenadiers, which are probably also up there for most annoying enemy type. And you also get your Chaos Ogre. So with all these, you can have a lot of the same specialists you get in the video game on your kill team, which is awesome. If you don't want to run this one and you want to run something a little different, the next team I would look at would be the Gellerposs Infected. This won't really give you the same options as what you have in the game, but a lot of the feeling is the same, and I could see a lot of these models being implemented in like a future DLC or something. So this is a Nurgle-based Infected team. So you get a lot of things that look kind of like your immunes, and things that look similar to your Plague Ogre. Even the little vermin you get seem like something that could be added as enemy types later, so while it's not a SAP perfect carryover, the theme fits, and I think it will work well enough. So if you like more of the demon-y Nurgle side of it and less of the human side, this is a better way to go. For the Imperium team, or the Rejects as they're known in Darktide, it's a little bit more of a stretch to make the team feel the same, and you do not have a Psyker or an Ogryn in any of the Imperium teams, so half of the options aren't there. But I think for the Zealot and the Sharpshooter, we can make them carry over pretty close. The team I would most recommend would be the Veteran Yardsman. So most of your models will have a standard las gun, which is pretty common, and you have someone that can run a sniper, so that can kind of replicate your sharpshooter profile. So it's far from being perfect, it's not a perfect carryover. And you will have a lot more models in your 4-man team, but you can kind of paint them up to look pretty similar, and I think it will give you a lot of the same vibe. So I think it's the best you're going to get to actually play the Rejects in Kill Team. So my second choice would be the Kasrkin, who are the Cadian Special Forces. So here, it would play entirely like a team of sharpshooters. You don't really have any melee options. And in lore, this team should be a lot more polished up than the Rejects would be. Like, these guys would have the best armor, they would follow regiment, they would be very orderly. It's not going to be a bunch of random Ogryns and Psykers running around together. But you can paint them up and model them to be a little grimier and dirtier, so you can make them look pretty similar. And while most new players don't do this kind of thing, you can go find other models that look similar and kind of proxy them in. So you can use their rules, but use models that look more like the ones from Darktide. So if you are wanting to go from Darktide to the tabletop, hopefully this gives you an idea of which game to play, and which teams actually fit the themes there. Obviously, there's several different games that would all work pretty well. And there are more teams than the ones I mentioned here you can play. I do have a video series going over every single kill team if you want to check that out. I'll have it linked here at the end. If you're interested in tabletop wargaming and especially kill team, make sure to subscribe to the channel and thank you for watching.